listening to BS the podcast with Benny Philhauer and Sal Zizzo. Thanks for Richie Arcopara. Enjoy.
Sorry, my wife is calling me here. Doesn't she know I'm doing the BS podcast?
They're going to play at Shea Stadium, right?
Shea. City Field, bro. It wasn't Shea since
Field,
1997.
What
What is it called? MetLife?
Welcome to BS the podcast. We are on episode 18. We got 3 to go before we take a little break, as most of you guys are probably disappointed with that, but we'll come with a vengeance these next 3. And we start with today's. We got Stuart Holden, main color commentator of FS1. It's going to be fun talking with him, Sal.
Yeah, someone you and I both played with various times in our career throughout the U23s and you later with the full team. As a guy that transitioned into a job that we wish we could do one day. You know what I mean? It looks like he's got a good life under him. So
yeah, and he's doing really well with it as well. So he's not just a guy doing once in a couple of months. He's the main guy at FS1 right now. So he's doing a really good job. He knows a lot about MLS. We're going to ask him a lot of questions, ranging from his career to also what he thinks about the teams in MLS now, going into the playoffs, all the awards that should be coming out throughout the playoffs for, whether it's MVP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player. We'll ask him about those questions, and we'll get into some stuff about his brother. Let's bring him on the show. Welcome to BS the podcast. We got Stuart Holden with us today. What's up, bro? Welcome on the show.
What's up, guys? I've been watching and listening to some of your stuff, and I'm actually, when you asked me to come on, I was pretty nervous about what's going to happen right now. So,
well, nothing to be nervous about.
And that evil chuckle there from Sal. That is
I think the thing you need to be nervous about is the guy, at least on my screen, he's top right over there, who asked the hard hitting questions at the end. So, interrogation is never fun.
Yeah, and I listened back to the last game you announced of ours, and you were ripping me. So I
that's your first lie of the day, then.
All right. So you've heard a couple of the podcasts. We start off with some quick hitters, some relatively easy stuff compared to the hard stuff at the end. We'll get into some of your career and what you're doing now and all your endeavors, and then we'll let Ike do you in the interrogation. If you answer all 5 of those, though, you can ask any one of us one question. So that's the light at the end of the tunnel for you. All right, here we go. Let's start it. First question: which has a bigger part in your heart, the Houston Dynamo, the Bolton Wanderers, or Sunderland?
Oh man, gosh, I like Houston and Bolton. I know Houston and Bolton are really even and close to me. I mean, Houston, I got the start of my career. It kind of gave me that opportunity, and then Bolton, I had all my big injuries where the fans stuck by me. Houston, I won. God, this is like pulling on my heartstrings. It's like you're asking me to pick between my kids.
Just pick one, dude. It's like Sophie's Choice. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, it is. But okay, I'm wondering whose fans are going to watch this more. Which of the fans are going to? So I'll go with. I'll go with Bolton Wanderers.
All right, Bolton Wanderers it is. And then I threw in Sunderland kind of as a joke, but you were there for what, like 2 months or something?
That's putting it nicely. Yeah, I was 2 months before I got knocked out on the
Didn't you get knocked out at a pub and broke your orbital bone or something? Like what happened?
So no, I mean, you want the story of that? I mean, we were. I'd signed for Sunderland. I was 19 years old. I'd only been training. I was training with the first team. I'd been there legit probably 3 weeks and was training well. My brother comes over to visit for spring break, and I'm like, hey, I'm a pro soccer player now. Let's go party in Newcastle. So we went out and partied in Newcastle, had a couple drinks. At the end of the night, we come down out of the bar. We're walking down the street. This is no lie. We're walking down the street for a taxi. 4 guys. Benny, you've lived in England. You know how this is. 4 guys were coming up the street the other way. I probably said something. I honest to God have no recollection of what I said, other than the fact that one of the guys was like, I'm a boxer and I'll bang you out. And he did bang me out. I was looking the other way. He walked around the side and he just one punch knocked me, dude. I was on the floor. I had double vision, and I actually had. This is the story of my career. In fact, I had a rare injury, a 1 in a million. It was an orbital fracture, where basically my bone of my eye broke like this, and the muscle got caught between. So then I couldn't look up or down or anywhere. I could only look straight, and I had double vision. So I had to have surgery. We got promoted to the Premier League, and Mick McCarthy, the coach, was like, I think you're out of luck, young Stuart. And I came back to Houston. So, it worked out well in the end, as much as that wasn't a fun point.
Well, you did well for only being able to look in one direction for the rest of it.
Well, and funny enough, whenever I used to get tired or, at the end of the night, like this eye would legit kind of droop down a little bit. My brother would be always like, why are you winking at me? I was like, geez, man, you could offended me that night anyway.
And how did he come out of that? He was fine or what?
Well, that's why I must have been the guy that said something, because my brother was the one like holding off 3 dudes from trying to get me more. So, I either they knew I played for Sunderland, which I find a hard believing because I'd only been there for 3 weeks. But yeah, he came out of there fine. He was holding my hair at the end of the night.
Okay. All right. What were you gonna say, something, Mike?
Actually, that's the Clemson partying in you. So
we don't have time for stories.
Well, I went to Clemson. I almost went to Clemson. I took my first unofficial visit there, and I college, man. That's all I can say. That place is.
Come on, man. Please indulge. But now I thought we were boys, but you didn't choose Clemson, so. Well,
I got released off my scholarship and didn't even know it. So that's a story for later days.
Hey, by the way, so Nathan Sturgis, you guys know Sturgis, played in the league.
Yeah.
Sturgis, I hosted him on his recruiting visit, and he was like, hot shot recruit, U17s.
Yeah.
My coach was like, hey, take care of this kid. So the next morning, my coach calls me, and he's like, I'm coming to pick him up. Is everything okay? And I just said, because of the night that we ended up putting together for him, I said to our coach, I said, he's coming to Clemson. Don't worry. He did commit.
He did.
Oh. And he was in my official visit. He was there, and he was passing down the torch.
Yeah, well done. You taught him well.
Joe Bendick, animal.
Good lad. Yes, Bendick is an animal. Yeah.
All right. I hope with this next question, I'm not stealing anything from Ike's questions, but rank these. Oh, by the way, I see as one of the best, if not the best, color commentarist or commentarian, or I don't know how to say it, but am I stealing one from you? Commentators? It's not commentarian? All right. Rank these color commentators in order of best to worst.
Oh, my God. How you just ripping off of what I do?
I mean, I wouldn't say ripping off. Like, fans want to hear some good ones from the beginning. Plus, I know you have like 10 of them, so you can just erase one. So here we go. Rank these in order of best to worst. Taylor Twellman, Brian Dunseth, Alexi Lalas, and Ray Hudson.
Oh, I don't put Alexi in the color category. I think Alexi's the best. I think Alexi's the best studio analyst out there.
I threw that one in there because he's FS1 with you, so I wanted to.
No, I think Lex, when he's in the studio, he brings the heat, man. He's always got an opinion. I like listening to Ray Hudson on the Barcelona games. I mean, that guy just he's a viral sensation. The guy just produces those. Oh, Magisterio, fantastic, Robinho, Messi out of this planet. I think I like the way Dunseth breaks the game down. I think do I have to rank him 1 to 4? I feel like 1
to 3. I guess since you took Alexi and said he's not a color commentarian.
Well, yeah, he's a studio guy.
So then you got to rank the other 3. So based on the fact that you like Dunny and Hudson, Twellman's in last. Is that right?
Well, I'm going to give Twellman shit just because he's my competitor on ESPN. So I'll go Dunny, Ray, and TT just because ESPN. I can't give ESPN love.
All right, sounds good.
I'm kidding.
All right, what's better, being a professional soccer player, being a professional television entertainer or commentarian, or being a club owner of Mallorca?
Being the wait, what were the first 3 again? Being a commentator, being a
soccer player, commentator, and club owner.
Soccer player is number one. I miss playing every day. You know, like doing what we did and what Ike is still doing. Fortunately, there's nothing better, man.
I just played in Seattle on turf on decision day, like 2 hours ago. So these are the days that you don't really love soccer. Let me tell you, Stu.
Those are. And actually, I played in Steve Nash's charity shield event yesterday, and we played 9 games in 5 hours. And you should see my knees right now; they're like a balloon. But you know that I'd say that commentator is a pretty close second to that. And right now, I'd say club owner they're all really ranked high. I look at what I've been able to do and what I'm doing right now, and I'm like, this is kind of surreal. I think the club ownership is growing on me. You know, I've slowly been growing my involvement in the club and been there since day one and watched us, go from 3rd division to 2nd division to La Liga, which I would say that day was one of like the greatest days I've been a part of, to see us, get into the top division and all the hard work that went into that. So I have a feeling over time, club ownership will surpass some of the others. But playing the game is still number one for sure.
Yeah.
Do you still play in like an adult league in LA or anything like that?
Yeah, we have the Playa Premier League, which is, the greatest pickup game in the United States. Nice. I have a list I can send you guys of people that have played in the game. So, if you want to come out and play in the game anytime, it's in LA. We play Mondays and Fridays.
Are you about to name drop?
I mean, if you want, I can. I feel like that's what the podcast is for, right?
You're going to say something like, I don't know, like James Franco, Paul Rudd.
Not like the biggest actor I think we had or artist is this guy. He's a French pop star. His name's Matt Pecora. I think he's dating or married to I'm blowing it now, the name of the girl. Del Piero, Dugarry, Sissoko, Nash, Sturridge, Gael Monfils, the tennis player. Then you've got like Alexi, Landon, Eddie Lewis, Heath, Pierce, Arne Friedrich from the German World Cup team, Alex Morgan, Tobin Heath, Ali Long, Kristen Press, etc. So Sal, come on, man. Come on here.
I'll be there next week.
So I play in that twice a week, and when I can. But my travel schedule is so nuts, man. I haven't been able to play in a long time.
All right, last question for me.
UCLA.
We play in Playa Vista, it's on a turf field. So Ike is complaining about turf. I actually value turf because the grass fields in LA suck.
Yeah. Well, the Seattle turf when it's not wet is brutal. It's okay when it rains.
When it's dry, it's terrible. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, 100%.
And disclaimer: we suck at quick.
Wait, can I ask you?
I mean, it's all right. It's
the next block.
All the tangents are great. Yeah. What's that?
I want to ask Ike, which is his least favorite field and stadium to play in the MLS?
I don't actually. So guys hate turf. I don't really hate turf. I don't like it when it's dry, like where we just played on. But I would say, oh boy. So if you've listened to the past podcast, New England and Houston get ripped by every single guest.
What, for the teams or for like
all of the above, Stu?
Houston's mostly for the weather.
Yeah.
Mostly for the weather.
Well, Houston weather's always sucked, but like that used to be a fun place to play. I mean, for me, obviously, but I don't know about opponents that would come there. It was like, for us, it was an advantage.
Yeah, no, it is. It definitely
walking into town and playing a soccer game.
Right. I had that advantage, and then then you go to Houston, you're like, advantage gone. I would say New England is tough.
Any turf during the daytime is awful.
But New England hasn't changed since I was in the league.
Yeah, well, I really do think Bruce is doing big things there. Like, I think it's going to change just from like his initiative of pushing craft and whatnot. So I think that's going to change in the future. But I mean, when they had the football lines on and all of that,
it feels small time now.
Yeah.
Right away. Like that was Benny. Did you ever play Rice Eccles Stadium? Probably not. Sal, did you? So. That was early, like Salt Lake, man. That was in like the college Utah stadium. That was like hands down.
I heard about that place though. Like it was like wasn't it like a tiny field?
It was like AstroTurf, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was it was even smaller than like his old stadium. And you'd walk into that stadium, it would be empty. Nobody would be there. it's just like you'd have to get yourself motivated for that game. It was awful, man. I look at where the league is now; it's incredible.
No, it's completely different. But I will say that Minnesota had the biggest advantage of all when we used to play there last year and the couple years before, because that stadium was straight doo-doo. No one wanted to go there. The only teams that had a chance. The only teams that had a chance of beating Minnesota over there were the bad teams that thought, "Oh, this is the one game that we might be able to win on the road." Other than that, like, dude, LAFC, when I went with them last year, we lost 5-1 in Minnesota last year.
Oh, I know. You guys were the best. Woo-hoo-hoo.
No, they're the best this year. No.
I played the coldest game in that stadium in my entire career and the hottest game in my entire career in that stadium.
Did you play in the opener? Was that the opener against
that was
in the snow, right?
No, so I didn't. So that next year, I played in it, and it wasn't snowing, but it had like a wind chill of like -9 or something. And dude, I went on the field after we got a red card. I was like the first sub in the second half, and I couldn't even talk. I was like,
tongue is hanging out. Yeah,
but at least we have fans. Like New England and whatnot. Like it's just different.
I don't want to cut you guys off, but can we move on with the slow hitters here?
You're going to.
Yeah, these are the slow motion hitters today.
Yeah, I'm not going to cut you off, but I'm going to. Yeah.
Last question for the slow hitters today is dirtiest player you've ever played against.
Ozzy Alonso.
Wow. But he never hurt you.
I thought Nigel the Young was coming out here.
Yeah, I thought I was going to say Nigel or some.
No, Nigel. I mean, I guess the reason I didn't say either of those guys right now, and I'll get into those guys if you want, but I played against Ozzy over a period of probably like 5-6 years, even when he was with the Charleston Battery, and like he was just like nasty, man. He was fun to play against him. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I mean, he was just like, I remember like spitting, kicking, like always punching like at you. He was just nonstop. Like Johnny Evans, I played against the guy one time in my career, and he pretty much ended it for me. So, he's up there on the dirty list with a kung fu tackle. And then, Nigel de Jong is kind of the same thing, that tackle, which was super dirty in the game against Holland. And, he breaks my leg. So I guess on a daily, like just kind of nasty player to play against, that would be Ozzy. I don't want to say like he's not a nasty guy. But those other guys, certainly Nigel had the red mist. And him and I had a conversation. The first time I saw him, probably not the first time, but the first time he ever apologized to me was 6 years after the fact. And, we were on the same flight back to Manchester. Tim Howard's carrying my bags. I'm on crutches after that game in Holland where he broke my leg. And Nigel saw me, gets on a phone call, goes straight past me and gets on the plane and sits like 5 rows in front, doesn't say anything to me. We did like one random charity event. He didn't talk to me. And then I saw him when the Galaxy played Portland in LA, and I was covering the game.
When he 2-footed Darlington?
Yep.
Yeah, when he smashed. I was on studio for that. He came and found me in the tunnel, and he was like, he had a sincere, like a genuine conversation. Was just like, look, I was in a bad part of my life. I had this red mist that would come over me in games. I put some really bad tackles on guys, and like, I just want to say I've followed your career since. I've been like rooting for you to get back, and I'm really sorry for that. And I was like, oh man, this guy's like a nice guy. And then he went and like 2-footed Darlington.
he was still in the rough part of his life.
I don't think he's come out yet.
He's scheduled to make an apology to Darlington any year now.
You gotta wait till year 7, Benny. Then it'll come.
Dude, I played with Nigel in Hamburg for 1 year or maybe like a year and a half, and he's not the nicest guy, man. I mean, he's like a guy that is for number one. He's trying to get a spot whichever way he can. In Germany, I mean, I don't know if it was just in Hamburg during that time, but in Germany, I've never been in a place where people didn't care about their own teammates in practice so much that they wanted to make their spot in the 11. So, like, if that meant, like, whatever, if I hurt
I
you
would get 2-footed on the daily.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
on the daily.
In Germany?
There was no, like, mutual respect necessarily. It was about you getting on the field. Once you're on the field, now you're trying to win the game. But first is you getting yourself on the field, and that was his attitude.
I mean, that's like an easy, way to, when people ask me the difference between Europe and when I was at Bolton versus MLS. And, it's actually a constant criticism, I think, of the American player, is that American players need to be a little nastier. American players need to have, that a little bit more of that cutthroat, like, I'm fighting for my job on the daily. And I would agree with that. I mean, not to the extent I'm two-footing dudes, but I definitely felt when I first got to Bolton, there was an intensity. And the way I phrase it is, Houston, I probably have still 4 or 5 guys that are some of my best friends in my life. In England, I speak to only a couple. It was less friends. It was more acquaintances. Like, you guys are on the same team. You're all fighting. You're battling together. But like, at the end of the day, somebody's going to jump on you, bro, to take your spot. And that's like the level that I felt there.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's hard to.
That's one of my main reasons as to why, like, I never succeeded over there. I was just too, like, nice and gave everyone too much respect.
It's hard to explain exactly why that is, though, right? Like, I've been in both parts of it, and I feel like I can kind of adapt to each situation. But it's hard to explain why people over there are like that, because, like, one thing that you could say a lot of times is if you go to a South American country, for example, like Brazil, where I grew up, a lot of players, this is how they make it. If they don't make it in soccer, they're not making it in anything else. And that's not how it is in America. So you can kind of differentiate by that. But in Europe, it's not necessarily like that. There's not a bunch of guys in England that if they're not playing soccer, like, they're literally going to have to live in the slums kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's hard to describe exactly why it is like that, though.
Just don't let Brad Fiedel hear this segment of this podcast, which is like, the nastiness of European and jumping people outside the stadium and yikes.
And that's why it's an interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, but it's like the one you always hear, right? When people talk about it, it's like, oh, you get shit at restaurants, and like people will come up to you and tell you how bad you play, and like, that's the pressure. That's not the pressure to me. Like, if a guy came up to me and was like, hey, you were shit today, I'd be like, thanks, buddy. Like, whatever.
So did 200 other people tell me that on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now it's on social media, right? But it was more so that came, I think, from, it created an environment of pressure, but also it just felt really big time there. And to me, it feels like it's getting there in the US, but still not quite at that point. Like, I laugh a lot now covering every MLS game on the weekends. I go to all these stadiums, and I said, when I left MLS, it was Civics in the parking lot. And now it's in MLS. There's like Bentleys and Range Rovers and Audis. And I'm like, the league's growing, man. Like, there's money. Guys are actually being able to buy stuff, like, as opposed to, working 3 jobs like Chabala was doing when he was making $11,000 a year.
That's crazy.
11 a year.
Chabala
mention.
Yeah, Chabala, bro.
Who else was there? Was it Pat Ioni days?
Yeah, we had the Houston like frat house. It was my house, man. I'm sure it was something. You guys must have been to like an after party at my house.
I was at your townhome, right?
Yeah,
the 3-story one.
Yeah,
I've been there. One time.
Chabala top floor, me on the second top. We had Ayani on the bottom, and then that was Ustruck, and then Danny Cruz. So we had like
pool table.
Oh man,
wasn't there a couch?
Yeah, Bobby Boswell lived on my couch.
Wasn't there a couch?
No, but I'm saying, wasn't there a couch top floor? Wasn't it red or something?
Oh. Yeah, the red couch. That's infamous.
For another day.
Yes, yeah.
All right, what are we getting into? I know I have one question that is buzzing on. I know Ike's mind and probably a lot of people's minds. So I'll ask this right away. It has nothing to do with soccer. It has to do with something that went a little bit viral, someone close to you, close to your family. And I really need to find out about this, exactly what went down. Your brother on a plane.
Yeah. Plane Bay. He was just Plane Bay was just flying over here earlier. It was such a surreal thing, Plane Bay. Like I'm in Russia covering the World Cup, the biggest sporting event of my broadcasting career. And I got upstaged by my brother for going viral for falling in love on an airplane. He legit calls me. It's like 8 a.m. Russian time. I think it's 11 p.m. his time. He'd just gotten back, and he's like, I think I just went viral, bro. And I said, I said, go to the doctor, man. You get that checked out. And he's like, no, he sent me the link. He's like, check Twitter right now. And so I checked Twitter, and I think it had like maybe 7,000 or 8,000 retweets, this thing. So it was the story of the girl, Instagram, or she was posting it on her Instagram, and she clipped it together and then started on Twitter where it really went viral. he was sitting in a seat. I'll give the quick version, not to take up all the time, but he was sitting in a seat that was next to a guy's girlfriend. The guy wanted to switch with him. So then my brother took his seat, and it ended up being next to a cute girl. And then they hit it off, and they were talking the whole flight. And
what was his flight? From where to where?
From New York to Dallas. And he was in New York for a weekend. And
3-hour flight.
Him and this, 3.5 hour flight. Him and this girl basically talked the whole time. They had a couple of drinks. They're like, as the girl is Instagramming from behind, they're kind of rubbing elbows. They were like leaning over. It was just like super flirtatious. My brother is a very handsome guy, for people that haven't seen him yet. And then there was one point where they both went to the bathroom at the same time, and the girl behind them Instagrammed like, "Uh-oh, what happened in the bathroom?" And then like that part kind of made it viral as well. And then they got off, and there's a shot of them like rubbing elbows and kind of walking together, almost like hand in hand off the plane. So it was just like this big mysterious love story. And my brother, of course, as my brother does, like is in the middle of this thing. At the end of this, he goes from 10,000 Instagram followers. He's got 120,000 Instagram followers overnight. His Twitter blows up. He's getting offers for like all this stuff. And then the girl did not want any part of it, because she, because what she had going on in kind of her personal life, which, I don't really feel comfortable sharing, because I guess that was a big part of like what was going on with that. And so it quickly went from this like amazing love story, and then like flipped to invasion of privacy, and like, why are these people filming these two strangers? And like, because the girl was getting bombarded too. And actually what really sucks about today's society, and I'm not going to get super deep on this, but it's like, a female in that setting, like the guy and my brother, like as far as the mystery around the bathroom, which for the record, nothing happened. They just both went at different times. Like the guy was being, applauded as like the man, and the girl was being slut shamed. And It was like, that's kind of the unfortunate part of that. And she was getting calls at her work, and it was just like, it's this wild like ride for 72 hours.
It is crazy though. It's great. Right? That's social media though. Like it is insane how things blow up out of proportion. Yeah, crazy.
He still gets recognized as Plain Bay. It's crazy.
That is crazy. I was going to actually ask you if anything actually did happen. With her still?
I don't know if they're still in contact. Maybe on Instagram or something. Okay. But yeah, my brother I think still gets like ad deals, and like it helps. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I'm Plain Bay's brother, so that's fun.
Second most famous person in the family.
Second most Holden.
All right. Well, I'm going to get into as a commentator on television, I know theoretically get to vote on some big things for MLS, right? At the end of the year, all the awards. I know that there's a little story behind that maybe you didn't vote on it this year.
I work every weekend on MLS. I watch endless hours of tape. I study, I work hard. I feel like I know this league inside and out. And, Benny, you're asking me before the podcast, who did I vote for? And I started thinking, I was like, wait, I didn't vote for anybody. I didn't even get a ballot. Like, what is wrong with the process here, man?
Wow.
I bet Taylor got 2 ballots.
You probably got 3. You might have voted for me too. Actually.
Hey, we will make this is your ballot for the year right here. We will have your ballot. I'm really curious.
MLS after this, by the way, too.
I hope you do. I hope you get your ballot. I hope they do the recount and everything. But
what is the process?
Typically, I voted for All-Star, so I got that one. You vote, you get your form, and you send in like who you think was for each category. It's pretty easy. Just click a button. Or type in a name if they didn't.
So let's do it right here. We'll do it very easily. I'll give you 3 options or whatever, and if there's anybody else that I forgot, you can throw it in there. So, Landon Donovan MVP award goes to Carlos Vela.
Yeah, why are we even doing
Joseph Martinez or Zlatan Ibrahimovic?
Zlatan was making kind of a late run at the end of the year there, and actually, if you look at
you're that guy.
But if you look at the stats, the number of goals he scored for his team versus anyone else, it's ridiculous. He scored. This is off the top of my head, so I don't know for sure, but I think it's like close to 75% of his team's goals, which is insane. But you cannot not give it to Vela. Vela's put together the best season in MLS history. As we're recording this, I think he scored a hat trick today on the final day of the season. against Colorado. They get the best record in MLS history. Like that's a bank. Put it in the bank. That's Vela.
I agree with you though. As much as like Carlos has been the best player in this league for this entire year, in my opinion, I actually understand exactly what you're saying for the Galaxy.
I don't think the Galaxy are a good team.
I think they have I don't think the Galaxy have a great defense. I don't think they know how to protect their goal. But they have some really good players from the midfield and forward. But anyways, Ibra is essential to that team. Like you said, he scored a ridiculous amount of goals.
Analysis on the Galaxy.
We will. Well, he's playing him.
Well, I'm sticking with the MVP. I mean, I understand you guys' arguments, but it's not even.
It's not an argument. I agree. It's head and shoulders. It's Carlos. Like he should win the MVP award, and he will. But I understand the thought process that without Carlos on LAFC, they're still a very good team. Without Ibra, I don't even know if the Galaxy make the playoffs. So
I agree. Yeah,
I understand. All right. Well, I think we're all in agreement. Carlos, yeah, guys.
I'd say so.
One of our more popular podcasts. I mean,
yeah. Friend of the podcast, Carlos.
He really had an uptick in production after he came on the podcast, though.
This is true.
You got a taste of like mainstream media. You guys got this great quote out of him, and everybody was like, only a few outlets were attributing it to you guys. It's like
crazy, right?
Podcasts in the United States.
This is on BBC. BBC took it.
I know.
Can we sue some of these guys? Can we get some money?
We'll talk.
There you go, Sal. Sal's always about that money.
All right, let's go. Let's move on to Defender of the Year, because this will be interesting. So I'll give you my three options as I did last week. Number 1, Ike Opara. Number 2, Miles Robinson. And number 3, our personal favorite, Anton Tinnerholm.
No, why
stop making this podcast?
Anton Tinnerholm has made a
record 7 straight podcast appearances.
His name has been mentioned in probably 90% of our podcasts so far.
In what context?
In the context that Sal thinks he has an ugly face.
No.
Like an annoying face, not like ugly. He's not ugly. He hates
on the field, and there's been plenty guys in the league. On the field, he has that personality where just
I can see that.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to attribute about 5 minutes of podcast time every week to Anton Tinnerholm.
It's in our contracts. We actually get sued if we don't.
All right. So Defender of the Year.
Defender of the Year. All right. I'll start with Miles Robinson, who has really impressed me this year. Like the amount of games that he's played and had a real breakout season. Got to play with the national team. I think a lot of people underestimated how good he was going to be. I think he's got a big ceiling. And, really without him this season, like Gonzalez Perez, I don't think has been good for Atlanta. Miles Robinson has been really good. And actually, many people were saying that Miles is better because he's playing with Gonzalez Perez. I think actually Miles Robinson cleans up a lot of the mistakes that Gonzalez Perez makes in the back. Tinnerholm, part of a New York City team that's put together a great year. I think he's a good defender. I think he gets into the attack well. I like what he does. And then Ike, if you watch the broadcast like you said you did, and you went back and watched it, I gave you major props in that game. And
I knew you did, to be honest.
Okay, good. I actually think, much like Zlatan makes the Galaxy that much better, you have made that defense in Minnesota infinitely better with your experience, and I would pick you for Defender of the Year, man.
Oh, Ike, that feels good, huh?
Ike. Good thing he doesn't have a vote, huh, Ike?
Ike, do you want to tell us your acceptance speech?
Yeah, my acceptance speech is that his plead the fifth questions got infinitely easier.
All right, let's move on.
Because if he was wrong, that would have been bad.
I agree with Stewie again. Sal, you have any opinion on Stewie on what he just said? You agree?
No, we gotta vote for Ike, right? I agree.
Yeah. Member of the
Kansas City kind of went downhill. So
that means I'll just lose to you guys.
How many did KC concede today? 6?
6, dude.
Golly, man.
Anyways, all right. Goalie of the year. Goalie of the year. Your buddy Brad Guzan. Dude, I'm gonna have a hard time with this one. One of you two help me here. Brad Guzan.
I can't. Well, there's like 5 or 6 guys I think that could win it.
Yeah, you got John. Maybe Vito should be in there, right?
Yep, John. Who?
Vito.
Yeah. Oh shit, Vito. Oh yeah. Vito, Sean.
I think Tyler Miller would have been in there if he had played more games, but he got benched.
Tyler Miller. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Tyler Miller is not for me. I mean, based on the stats, obviously his stats look good, but I mean, clearly Bob doesn't think he's their best goalkeeper. He's benched him.
I think Bob does think he's their best goalkeeper because he's going to play in the playoffs.
To me, it's the wrong time to send a message to your goalkeeper that needs confidence.
I agree.
Bob benching him a couple of times goes to the playoffs. That's like the only uncertainty for me around that LAFC team.
He played today, though, right?
Yeah. I believe.
I know that he's out of a contract at the end of the year, and that could always be a part as well. So you never know.
Oh, that's been a part of it for sure. I mean, they've been lobbying, and I think Tyler got a new agent at some point in this process. So there's obviously a lot that goes on behind the scenes. But yeah, Tyler played today and started.
Yeah, I think Tyler was the best goalkeeper for the front half of the year, and then after that, like we said, he kind of didn't play some games, and then the team started playing a little bit worse, especially defensively. They gave up some goals, like to the Galaxy and a couple other games, and then I think his chance to win it kind of faded away.
Who's your keeper?
What's that?
Who's your keeper of the year?
No, it's you. You got to answer. I don't have a vote. Well, I already actually voted.
I think there's two others.
I would put Turner as well from New England. I think he had a really good year. I don't think he'll win it, but that's why I voted for him best 11.
And I think
it's just tough when you only play 20 games.
Yeah, right.
I think Brad will win.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's between Goose and Sean John, but I think Guzan will get it.
I voted Sean.
Okay.
I voted Sean.
All right, and then Rookie of the Year, which some guys that I think me and Ike both know, Andre Shinyashiki for Colorado. And I honestly think the next two are both on your team, Mike. I think Dotson
and Gasper.
What's the Gasper left back?
Yeah.
And maybe Aronson, the guy from Philadelphia.
Aronson.
Aronson, he's tidy, bro. I like him a lot. He just got called up to the national team too. He's
is there anybody? Any other guys I'm missing?
I mean, you said Dotson, right? I think he's been really good. I'm trying. Who won last year? Corey Baird won, right? Last year.
Yeah. Last year, he definitely won Rookie of the Year, whichever.
I think last year Donovan Pines for DC. He's been pretty good. Yeah, no, I don't.
It'll be those two guys.
What's your vote, Stewie? I want to hear your vote for Rookie of the Year. I think this was one of the tighter races that we have.
Yeah, I like Shinyashiki. I guess what I would say is, and this is kind of the unfortunate part of the games that we cover typically. I haven't done a single Colorado game this year, so I haven't got like a firsthand, every single movement and game that been able to watch him in person. So I see highlights. I watch, a couple games. I watch Colorado here and there, but I would say I'd see the Minnesota guys more. And I like Dotson. I think he's super versatile. I think he's, as part of like why I would vote for him, is that he can complement his team and make his team better in a number of different positions. And I think to see his growth over the course of the year, and a guy that's got a lot of confidence now, I'd vote for him.
I'll go ahead and back up my boy because Andre for sure deserves it. And I watch a lot of soccer in MLS, and obviously, like you said, I know that there were, I think the only two nationally televised games that Colorado had were two Unimas games. I think they were both on Unimas. Yeah. So very little national TV time, but Andre's one heck of a player. I think he should win it. I don't even know exactly what his stats were, but I know
what college did he go to?
He went to Denver University.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I really like the way he plays, and I think he should get it. And as much as I think Dotson and Gasper are both good players, I don't think it compares to the quality that Andre's shown this year. So I would vote for him. I voted for him. I don't know how much our player votes count, but he should win.
Third. Well, I guess like percentage.
It's yeah. I mean, yeah. All right. Did I miss any other? Are there any other awards?
Coach of the Year.
Coach of the Year. Okay. I thought it was a really close race up until about a month and a half ago, but I will go with the three nominees as Bob, Matias Almeida, and I would say Tarrant in New York City. Is there? I mean, am I missing one?
I mean, even Adrian Heath, maybe in a way. I mean, first year for playoffs for Minnesota.
What about Bruce bringing him back from the dead? I mean, you can't deny that.
Bruce did a job as well, but I think there was also I feel like every time you get a new coach, and you saw this at Colorado as well, and I mean, Colorado finished the year really well. I think they were the third best team since whatever, like the first
since
12
they
games
traded you, basically.
Since they traded me, yeah, exactly. What a trade they made. But I think there's always that little uptick in performance when a coach comes in, and not necessarily because of revolutionary tactical genius thing that they've done. It's just players are more focused. They want to impress a coach. They know that their spot isn't guaranteed at that point, and so as much as I think Bruce for sure is going to help that team in the long run, I think that the fact that they kind of leveled out a little bit, plateaued at some point, and I think they finished. Did they finish 7th or 6th?
Yeah, they're in the last spot. Yeah,
so I think he did a really good job, because I mean they were I think second to last when he got in there. So he's done a wonderful job. But I wouldn't. I mean, go ahead. I want to see what your answer is. I'll tell you obviously what I think. But what would you vote for?
I think you got to vote for Bob. I think there's other good picks in there. Actually, Dome Torrent, like you mentioned, he was being written off after 4 months taking over from Vieira, and how bad New York City were after Vieira left. And it was like he was changing formations. He was getting criticism from his own players. He was getting crushed by the media. They finished the season poorly. They lost to Atlanta in the playoffs. And then, they've been on a tear, man, since the beginning of, like, I think the middle part of the season. From that point on, they've been, step for step with LAFC. And actually, at one point, even like a couple weeks ago, they could have actually pipped LAFC for the support. It's crazy to think about, but I've got to go with Bob just because of him coming back to MLS and second year now with that team, and just doing what he's done with them and being so far ahead. I mean, their goal differential is insane, and they've played the best soccer all year. And I think that the best team, should clean up on most of the awards, and I would give it to Bob. We've both played for him. I think Bob's a great coach, and I actually think Bob, not like a lot of the older, some of the coaches that have been around this league for a long time, or he's been able to evolve as a coach as well, and evolve his style of play and his man management and his tactics, and that's clear by the results they've had on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I can firsthand agree with everything that you said in terms of like the things that he's evolved as a coach, and so I do think that with him as a national team coach, when we were there, there's only so much you can do because you're with guys for a short period of time, and it's hard to really implement a lot of things. But whether it's
I don't know if you felt the same way when I was at Bolton, and this is the truth. I mean, I would go from Bolton training where it was like mostly kind of like rah, like, a little bit of tactics here and there, some set pieces, but it was like roll the ball out, play, motivate the guys. Every week you're up against a big team, and we weren't as talented, but we'd get results. And then I would go to national team camp, and I would legit feel in 10 days that I would learn so much as a player, like even the simplest things that you forget about sometimes, but how to fit in a different system, how to position my body, what I should be doing in my position as an 8 or a 6 or whatever. Right. I used to go back to Bolton and be like, wow, I feel like I got a better player in 10 days. So even Bob still, to me, felt like he had a big impact on my career in a shorter time with the national team.
That's exactly Bob, and he still does those things, and he does it, I think, to the nth degree now in terms of putting your body in the right place, in the right, as he likes to say, half space with the half turn, and, take it on the left foot and then play with the right. And so, I mean, I remember the first year, and I agree with you he should win Coach of the Year. And I think he did most of his work last year, to be honest, because from everything I've heard from guys that are there this year, not much has changed. It's the same thing. It's just like continuing to tell people, the things that he believes in. But I think last year, inevitably, it took longer for guys to pick up on it, So a guy like Edward Atuesta is a perfect example. Last year, he had ups and downs. He had games where he played really well. There was games that he played pretty poorly. This year, he's managed to take everything that Bob said, and obviously you get used to the league and the use of the players around you. And he's been, in my opinion, their second best player this year, and probably one of the best midfielders, if not the best midfielder in the league this year. I mean, he's played really, really well. So
he's been really good.
Yeah, Bob, I would say Bob deserves it as well for all the work that he's done in the last 2 years.
Hey, real quick,
Sal, Ike, nobody.
It's Bob. You can't. I mean,
yeah, man.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember, Stu, you had made a comment, I think, when they were searching for a national team coach. I just remember you saying something like, why is nobody bringing up like Bob Bradley's name?
And by the way, I got crushed.
That's what I was going to say. And so like, I remember reading that and being like, dude, honestly, like he's evolved. He's still in my mind, like a top coach. I mean, like, look at Jesse Marsch. Look what he's doing like in Germany. Like everything Jesse's doing and his main mentor and his whole life was Bob Bradley. You know what I'm saying? And so, and Bob's just keeps evolving. Like you said, Benny, like he doesn't stop.
That's what Jesse does too. He's evolved a lot. So like he learned a lot from Bob, and I think he's taking his own step like to what he is now. And also, I mean, the Red Bull way or whatever, like a lot of the teams play in that sense, and he's kind of evolved, but he's made his own path with learning what Bob kind of taught him and what he learned from him. And so, yeah,
I would just say that I think that was a valid. He was a valid, option at that point, in my opinion. Did you guys happen to see that video of Jesse speaking?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Pretty cool.
I loved it because I could understand both his German and English.
Same, I know.
So it was pretty awesome.
It was weird. It was like I heard him talking in like my Red Bull locker room in that voice, but then also speaking in German. I was like, where am I right now? This is weird.
You got right.
Yeah.
That is fine.
Kept on, yeah.
The best is that he would throw in words with a German accent in English, though. Like fight is kämpfen, and so like he was saying, "We müssen fight." I was like, "What is happening here, dude?"
Yeah, but I think, and just like to add on to that, like you talk about him being mentored by Bob. Like one of Bob's, I think, greatest coaching traits also is that like he at times will show himself to you and like. Show humility and like almost like, show vulnerability in a way, but also it's endearing. And like Jesse in that moment, he's quickly learned German, he's trying the language, but he's mixing that with like the intensity and passion and like this, you watch that and you're like, I want to fight for that guy, and like, that's what Bob used to do as well. And that's what I thought was really cool. Like I was actually laughing at points during watching that video because I was like, this is kind of hilarious, but it's so awesome. Like I can't get enough of that content.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. And the great thing is that they went out and scored 2 goals and tied Liverpool up before they eventually lost 4-3. But pretty cool.
Well, that video wouldn't have been released if they lost 7-1. So let's just be clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I just think it's a matter of time. At some point, he will be the national team coach.
Oh yeah.
I don't know when or where, but I think he's.
Will he want it?
I think he. This is purely. I'd heard like through the grapevine at some point though that his name was mentioned in the conversation, but Jesse is already kind of like, I'm off doing my thing now in Europe and he's on this path, and it wouldn't make sense for him to come back.
It wouldn't make sense right now. But I'm just saying,
will he want it? Let's say like 5-10 years down the line, he gets offered 100%. That job. But 100%. what if he's got a job as a coach in the Prem or Bundesliga?
Knowing Jesse, I think at some point in his life, I think he would devote his time to making like our national team better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I believe you. So that's cool. All right. Well, those are kind of all the questions that I had, boys. What do we got for Stuart?
Can you guys rank your favorite commentators for me from 1 to 4?
I only rank play by play. I only rank play by play. John Strong's my favorite.
John Strong. Me and John Strong go way back to the Portland days, man.
The Timbers, man. He was in the Timbers army.
Yeah,
he was.
45 down, 45 to go.
That's his trademark. Yeah.
I'm all for it.
that John Strong and I are the same age, right?
No.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
John's our age.
Yeah.
John is 34. John is 34.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't tell him, but he looks 40.
He gets. People can't believe that we're the same age. I swear. And I first met him. I'm not kidding. So, how I got into broadcasting, like I tore my ACL in 13 and I got a call from Shaw Brown, who's still, he's a good friend and he still produces all the games for us with Fox. He's been, he's covered how many World Cups now, going back. And So Shaw called me and was like, "Hey, are you interested in broadcasting?" And I said, "Yeah, I mean, I think so. I got hurt again, and I'm open to trying it." So he set me up with a Thursday night MLS game on NBC Sports where nobody was watching, Chicago against the San Jose Earthquakes. And John has lunch with me before my first ever game. I called with John, and he sits me down and he's like, "I just want you to know, if you want to do this, you need to take it as serious as the rest of us. This is our job. Like, this is our life. This is what we do. So don't think you can kind of just come in here and half-ass it and be good at it. Like, if you want to be good, you got to take it serious." And I was like, God, I feel like I just had a talk with my dad. Like, I got that first time meeting. So I was like, there's no way. I was like, this guy is the same.
And he looks like your dad too.
Yeah.
As old anyways. Don't tell him that. Come on. Don't tell him that. I like him.
I was going to say, so was that the best piece of advice you got as a commentator or going into it? Or is there another piece of advice that you got?
It's strange that I make fun of this, but that comment, but it was, and I hear this throughout. And Benny, I know you've heard it too. And it's about, if you want to be good at this job, you have to. It's work, it's not just as simple as turning up and going on TV. It's prep. It's it's working at your craft. Like you're saying, you watch your game back. I watch my games back, and I listen now as opposed to thinking what I'm doing, but how I say something, why I'm saying something, how are you breaking things down, and an evolution over time. I feel like I've gotten a lot better since 2013 when I was doing that game, and it's because of that. So yeah, I mean, you realize pretty quickly in this industry that if you want to be good, you have to work, and those that work actually are rewarded for that, because I think that the people at the top appreciate guys that can execute, but also take it seriously and treat it like a job. I mean, this is my job now. I love it,
Yeah.
And it's funny. I remember a distinctive moment in my life where somebody told me how old John Strong was, and I had that same reaction. It was in Portland. Someone was like, "Yeah, I actually played high school soccer with him," and this dude was my age. I was like, "No, come on, you're lying." No. He's like, "No, really." He was like, "He played high school soccer in Oregon." I was like, "What?" Yeah, same reaction.
And also the other part of broadcasting, I feel like why I enjoy it is that I actually feel like I have a group, especially with MLS, with Shaw, with Katie Witham, with John Strong. It's a mini family. It's kind of the best teams we've been on with teammates. I have fun traveling. I travel with those guys so much. Sometimes I see them more than my wife, which is the sad reality of how often we're on the road. And I don't get on an airplane thinking oh crap, here I got to go do this game. I look forward to that. So,
yeah.
That's a big part of why life is good too,
Yeah, no, that's a great thing. Love what you do.
Right. I'm going to pump your tires a little bit here. I would say, no, but you and Taylor, what you guys have done post-career is actually admirable. It's impressive, because when you're playing and you're cut short by injuries, and that I know how that feels. And so having that doubt of what's going to happen, and I was lucky to make it back, but to see you guys transition into television, honestly, is very impressive in my opinion. And so kudos to you guys for doing what you do. So
it's not easy. I retired effectively at 30, I think is when I officially announced it. I played my last game, I think, at 27 or something, and I tried to rehab for 2.5 years and kept tearing my ACL, and I ended up tearing it 4 times before I was like, okay, I'm done. And that was the hardest part. But I also knew, to your point, I'd been working on the side to get the broadcasting thing going, and I knew this is what I wanted to do, and it made that transition a lot easier for me, where I didn't really deal with this lull and this in between of an uncertainty of how am I going to feed the family, how am I going to do this, how am I, and I played in England, I had a career that I'm proud of, and you make some money over that point, but I never wanted to be the guy who's I'm not doing anything now, and it wasn't easy for sure. Especially I look back and people are like, you have to retire at 30. And I'm like, well, I called the World Cup final at 32.
Well, Stuart, you retired at 30, and then you were able to go and make yourself one of the best color commentarian of the U.S. And Sal retired, and he is now one of the best
podcasts in the
real estate agents in the greater Las Vegas area.
Is that what you're doing now, Sal?
That is what he does.
I am. That's what I'm doing.
He wears a tie and a suit in 110-degree heat, and he drives around whenever somebody hits him up on his beeper and shows him the house.
Did you know that? Did you know that's what you wanted to do, or it just kind of like happened?
I always invested in real estate beforehand, and when I retired, I just kind of wanted to try something new away from soccer. If it's something I do long term, as of now, I'm just trying to figure it out. But
we've been begging.
I mean, for now, it's good. It's good. I'm doing pretty well in it.
We've been begging this man to unretire, begging him come back to soccer, please.
I got 3 in escrow, bro. 3 mofo.
Good job. All right, here we go. All right, we have no further questions for you other than the hardest part of the podcast, which is Ike's interrogation. You're currently now sitting on the hot seat, and I will pass it over to Mr. Ikenna. Go ahead. He's all yours.
The seat is now lukewarm because he said vote for me. Come back. It's lukewarm, Earl. It's lukewarm. You said you would have voted for me with your fictional ballot. So,
I hope that whole bit of you telling him he's the best color commentarian and he did really well. It's the last nice thing you say on this podcast to him.
Well, I was just giving him props because it's impressive how he transitioned, him and Taylor, from a career that was cut short. But anyways, first question. Who looks more like Stu Holden? Stu Holden himself or Megan Rapinoe?
Megan Rapinoe, for sure. There's before we were pictured in the same place, people thought we were twins.
I mean, I do a double take every time I see both of you guys, to be fair.
I want to dye. If I dye my hair purple, I think it would be striking.
Yeah.
She's had her hair like blonde though, like how you used to have it, right?
Yeah, I have a picture with her and I at the ESPYs, I think, where we look like legit the same person.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's really good looking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I would say that the picture we posted to announce that we were doing Stu Holden was like, that's Rapinoe. So, second,
okay, I'll take that one.
Okay. We're going to go to a tougher question now. Second question. Which current MLS player, just from seeing how they, mannerisms, whatever be on the field, would you not want as your teammate? If you were still playing.
Oh, man. I feel like it's going to sound crazy to say because I would love to have played with him, but Zlatan, I think, would wind me up because he's just like the disrespect sometimes.
What about when he shoved Legit in the wall?
Yeah, like shoved Legit. Like I watch him, like and by the way, like I would love to have played with him.
Right.
Because like he's just an insane talent. Like he's one of a, once in a lifetime type of guy. But like, I'm also like, I don't know if I would have had the confidence in the locker room, depending how long I'd been there, but I'd be like, want to just bark back the way he would like treat some of his teammates for like a bad cross, man.
Right.
But yeah.
Then he would do a roundhouse kick to your face.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And tell me how shit I am and how great he is.
Yeah.
We're trying to get him on the podcast.
You're like, you played for Bolton. I've won in every country on earth.
Yeah, you would take L after L with that man.
Yeah.
And by the way, the fan questions that I got were actually mean this time. Not even like hard, just straight mean.
Oh, man.
Several.
Social media nowadays, huh?
Yeah, seriously, on this subject, which is the third question.
Just search my Twitter. Just search my Twitter handle during any game that I call. You'll find a lot of mean people.
Okay. How did an NBA All-Star / MVP and Steve Nash become a top American pundit for the Champions League?
How did he?
I dumbed that question down because there was like some straight hate.
Yeah. No, I'm curious
together.
Is this where we have the opportunity to expand? Because I feel like I'd be curious on your guys' perspective. But, the way that Turner came into and approached the Champions League was to try and do it a little bit differently, which I'm sure you've seen, but also try to, cross promote across and integrate, across different sports. I mean, there's a natural integration now, I think, between NBA and soccer, and you see it with the stars. And, I think Steve, being a guy that transcends both sports, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but also, as big, if not a bigger soccer fan. He doesn't really play basketball ever now. All he does is play soccer, and a guy actually that knows the sport well. So, I think for Steve, early on in us covering the Champions League, he was trying to find, what his voice was, what he wanted his voice to be. And I think as the season went on, he has some really smart stuff to say. He's got a different role this season, so he's more of a, he's kind of a contributor and does like these cool feature pieces, etc. But I don't know. I'd be interested in your guys' thoughts. I thought it went well for year one, especially because the fact that Spurs got to the final. So.
I hardly ever am able to watch Champions League anymore because it's like it's literally like during practice. I feel like
the timing's tough, man.
Last year it was because I was in California last year with LAFC, and it would be what is it like 11:50?
Sorry, 10 and 12.
10, yeah, 10. It was literally during practice, so I literally barely got to watch any of it. So I'm gonna hold any opinion since I didn't get to watch much.
We can move to the next question.
Is this okay? No, we're not moving yet. Is he good? Very subjective here. Yes or no?
As a soccer player?
That's all you have.
Good as a player or as a pundit?
As a pundit.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Allegedly. All right.
Wow.
Who? Well, I don't know because I don't watch much either. But people always bring it up, and I'm like, I don't know why you care that much, but whatever.
Yeah. All I know is Steve Nash was a really good basketball player and is a huge soccer fan. So if he's gonna help grow the game of soccer, like I'm all for that.
Great.
I can't wait. To Sal's point, if they're not talking about you, and it's like a coach, if the coach isn't yelling at you, they've stopped caring. And the fact that people like either notice it or get like triggered by it, it's like it means that they're watching, or that it's like a point of contention for them either way, which is a good thing actually.
I mean, Ike, wouldn't you want to be doing an NBA? Playoff?
I can't wait.
Exactly.
I can't wait till Christmas Day. They bring down for the Warriors versus Lakers. Can't wait.
I'd crush it. We get Steph with nice
I've
dribbling.
seen Taylor do Sports Center.
He did the Austin Sports Center, I think, before. Yeah.
Taylor knows like every sport. He used to do stuff on NESN. I think it was NESN, the New England Sports Network. He played baseball, so he knows baseball. But he claims to know every sport, and I think he knows like quite a bit. To be fair, but yeah, he's talking about baseball and golf.
Question 4, Benny.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
All right, you're running my interrogation again. Who is the worst player in MLS?
Who is the worst player in MLS history?
Just MLS.
MLS history or this year?
Oh, who is the worst player in MLS?
It's kind of can you give me a bottom 3 to put on?
No. Like who'd you announce and you just laughed at the entire game internally? Like, obviously you can't laugh on the mic.
Yeah, well, see, like, here's the thing again. Like, this is the hard part that I was talking about. I'm not dodging the question, but like, like I was saying about Shinyashiki, is like some of the worst teams in the league right now. Like, we don't really cover their games because Fox and ESPN pick the games, and they typically try and pick the good matchups. So,
hey, Colorado's third best team in the league since they traded me. Can't say that about them anymore.
So you're the worst player? Is that what you're saying?
Dude, it took me, 15 games to get a win this year. At one point, every team had more points than Benny Feilhaber.
It's someone from Orlando, I think. Somebody on Orlando. Or Cincinnati. No, it's someone from Cincinnati. Cincinnati were woeful. I covered their games. I covered their game this year, I have to say. And in the middle of it, I was like, I looked at John Strong and I pointed and I was like, there's a
Cincinnati's offseason moves were diabolical. Fernando Adi barely played and got in a fight with the entire organization. And Kendall Waston was more expensive than Ike. Oh, no, he was barely less expensive than Ike. And
Adi looked like he had never played soccer before. Like at Portland, he scored goals. And watching him for Cincinnati this year, it was crazy. I mean, the ball was bouncing off his shin. Like second touch is a header. Like he was all over the place, man.
Second touch is a header. I haven't heard that one.
Touch tackle.
So, I don't know if you answered it, but you didn't unanswer it. So
yeah, I mean, I can go.
Give them a hard one
go
to
back and look at their roster, and then I'll give you a name after.
Can you give them a hard one though to finish off, and not one of these subjective things?
I mean, he kind of pleaded the fifth there, to be honest.
He said he's going to answer the question once he looks at their roster. He doesn't remember more than 3 names on Cincinnati's team.
Also slightly true.
No, we're going to just. Oh man. Last question. All right, with the playoff field set after today's decision day, fun stuff. Let me tell you, which club out of the East and the West do you not want to see in MLS Cup?
Okay, let me look at the standings here. Which team I don't want to see Dallas in MLS Cup.
You won't. They're going to lose to Seattle.
Yeah. They just don't excite me. I think Lucci's done well with them to get them to the playoffs again, but they're typically in and around the playoffs. I just never think or expect that they're going to win. I think they won once, right, in their history. Is that right? Or no, they didn't.
They lost in the finals.
No, they lost to Colorado.
Colorado, yeah.
In Toronto.
And Toronto?
So wait, in Toronto. Ike, are you saying one from each conference that I don't want to see it for? You know, like you guys are making this hard for my job because if one of these teams now gets into that spot, then I have to
answer this one.
You better pick a real loser.
Players already suck with us when we're like, "Hey, Fox want to meet with you." They're like, "Yeah, cool." Yeah. Okay, I
can't wait till you interview Gucci next time.
I was gonna say New England because I don't want to go their 7 seeds, but
New England
7 seeds.
Or New England.
New England, you'll be fun like next year, maybe.
I got a quick question, Stu. From the top 4 teams in the league, right? Which team do you see taking an early exit? What really good team do you see not going far?
So that would be what? New York City, Atlanta, LAFC, and Seattle?
Seattle. Yeah. I think I could see Seattle taking an early exit.
I don't know why. I feel like New York City.
I agree. I think,
but this is what's going to be interesting. Do you guys think the single limb? I think it changes the whole dynamic of it.
Oh, it does.
It gives a huge advantage to New York and LAFC.
LAFC has, it's the easiest route to an MLS Cup.
2 games
of all.
Yeah,
you got to win 3 home games. 3 home games.
Off. I'm curious how that layoff is going to be.
No, 3 home games to win MLS Cup. I'm saying.
Oh yeah, to win MLS Cup. Yeah.
3 home games.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know what's going to be interesting, Sal, to your point, quickly, is that New York City might not even play any of their home games at home. It's like they effectively lose the advantage of playing in Yankee Stadium, which is a joke.
I want that to happen.
They're going to play at Shea. At Shea Stadium, right?
Shea. City Field, bro. It wasn't Shea since 1997.
What is it called? MetLife?
City Field.
Have you watched the baseball game? And they were in the World Series the other day.
Oh my God!
Shea Stadium.
Shea Stadium.
That's where the Mets play. The Mets haven't been relevant in baseball.
Mike Piazza out here.
Mike the Subway Series.
The Subway Series between the Yankees and the Mets. I guarantee it was called Shea back then.
It was.
It was. But then they got a brand new stadium.
But then in 1998,
somehow missed it.
I think the biggest threat to LAFC in the playoffs are Portland, Galaxy, and Atlanta. I don't think any other team is going to beat them. That's what I think.
LAFC
101.
Minnesota, but I think you're another tier. I think you guys could do it. You're actually not bad defensively, sitting back and being able to counter, and that's what LAFC. That's the only way LAFC is going to lose at home is people putting bodies behind, suffocating them, and then counterattacking because they leave some open spaces because they they want to play their way, and I don't see them changing the playoffs.
It's actually, yeah, I don't see them changing. If you look at Atlanta and Toronto, how they both won the last 2 cups, they all changed the way they played in the playoffs and like went defensive or a little bit more pragmatic. Bob,
right.
Like I cannot see Bob doing that for the life of him. Like he's going to have to win the beautiful way. And yeah, it might mean that they get sucker punched by somebody at home.
That's the only way I see it. But yeah, I agree with you.
You don't see it, Sal, huh?
LAFC Atlanta in the finals, and then who knows?
It'd be an awesome final.
That is a great final. I think that's the final that MLS wants to see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, they want to see El Chapo
at one
go
point
first,
it was gonna.
Oh, they're gonna make a way for Minnesota to lose Galaxy.
Okay, Stu, you I guess you answered all 5 questions. I don't know, since you just do Cincinnati all the way under the bus, so you can ask a question to any of us, and we must answer. So
go ahead.
So Benny's volunteered himself to be asked.
Yeah, Benny wants to be the guy.
I think Ike was the one that gave all the easy questions, so it really should be him that gets the question.
But I was gonna ask you, like, who's your worst ever teammate you've had, but I feel like that's kind of easy. You choose some guy from Hamburg.
You mean Nigel de Jong?
De Jong, yeah, he better say that. You don't know who your worst teammate is?
It depends. Like Ike, whenever Ike usually asks those questions, he lets you interpret it the way you want to, and I know what my answer would be. It would be the worst practice player I've ever seen in soccer.
And Ike, I was going to ask you who's the worst player on your team.
No, this dude was in England, right? In Derby. Yeah. I feel like you've preached this your whole career.
The old overachiever.
Robbie Savage?
Yes. The worst.
Robbie Savage.
Robbie Savage, one of the worst training players I've ever seen in my life.
That bad?
Dude, I mean that team, I mean I wish they did like one of those Sunderland 1-year things at Derby, because it would have been gold. You know what I'm talking about? Like I think it was on Amazon Prime or whatever.
Yeah.
All or Nothing was the Man City ones, but they did like a Sunderland one. They did the Leeds one. They should have done one for Derby that year, because it would have been amazing. The things we trained that year. Ooh, unbelievable. I remember talking
anymore.
Dude, I don't know if this is on the podcast, but I remember me and Emmanuel Villa, this Argentine dude that came from Mexico, and we were talking about how we were trying to figure out what sport we were playing in practice, because didn't know what it was.
Oh my god, bro.
So was that your question?
All right. Who Benny, here we go. Who's the best partier you've ever had as a teammate?
Ooh, that's hard too. I'm not much of a partier, so that's a hard question for me. Let me like go through it here. I know somebody on my current team that's a really good partier, but I've yet to go out with him.
Ooh, who's this? Let me think.
Is he a Scottish fella?
Yeah.
Well,
Johnny Russell.
No. He doesn't go out like frequently, but he can go very hard.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I've heard stories, but I haven't really been out with him, so I can't really say him. God, let me think.
Oh, God, this is easy. This is like peak.
All right, Ike, here you go. Ike, if you had to build a starting 5 of of teammates you've had.
I think I got. Wait, I'll give you my MLS answer. Can I give you my MLS answer? I actually don't think it's the number 1, but my MLS answer is Shalry Joseph.
Shalry Joseph.
This guy managed to.
He's a nice guy too.
Play one of the play a really good season for a really bad team, and he would probably go out 5 times a week. So.
Number 1 on my draft list would be
Barnes and Kevin Alston.
Number 1 on my draft list would be Jay DeMerit.
Oh, Jay DeMerit.
First pick.
Yeah.
Jay DeMerit, first pick, hands down.
There was one camp I went to, and he stuck in my head when you asked Benny that. I was like, he's probably going to say Jay DeMerit, because he was great that night. He was great that night.
He's great every night.
Wait, so what was your actual question? Who's it to? What happened here?
Well, then
It was to Benny.
I guess I asked Benny. Yeah, we got Benny on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, follow, man. I know it's hard, but just try and keep up.
Like, well, yeah. Well, this dude asked me my top 5 guys who I'd build around, and I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, no, I was gonna
Wando.
say. Yeah, then I threw in another one. I was gonna say best. Oh, here you go. Is Wando a top 5 all-time MLS player?
Yes.
No.
I think.
Depends how you define that. It depends how you
Right.
define it.
I was
So
gonna
I think you got to put him in the top 5.
He's the greatest MLS striker of all time. He is not nearly the best. He's not better than Zlatan.
But this becomes like a dinner
Okay.
conversation for us, like once a month.
I think if you say
debating or
greatest,
ranking your top 10.
right. I mean, if you say greatest, then I think you have to acknowledge longevity, right? How long you've been in the league, how long you've done it. So Wando's done it for, I don't even know how many years. Like, he's done it at a really high level for that many years.
I think since 06.
But he's not the best striker to have played in this league. I mean, you could Javinko, Carlos, Zlatan,
Thierry,
like Joseph,
Valderrama,
Robbie Keane, Landon. Like, I mean, you could go on and on, right? I don't even know if Landon's a striker, but yeah, he's probably not a striker.
But
But
I just
still,
don't know how you can't have your top
Dempsey.
time all-time goal scorer in your top. You know, in a minimum, he's in your top 10.
Yeah,
in terms of best, no, because
like
there's
all
guys that
time.
played
Like, if
for
you're
1
ranking
year.
it all time, it doesn't matter how you say it. He's in your top
Are you
10
taking
all time.
longevity
He
into
has to
account?
be. What's that?
Well,
yeah,
like, are you
I mean,
all
like,
time.
if you-
All time, best player all time. He's in the top 10.
That for me is greatest. Then yes, I would say. I just like the way you define it. It just depends how you define it, but yeah.
I just don't think you can
leave
deny his achievements and leave
I
him
think
out of
he is the greatest striker in MLS history of all time. But it's just the way I define it in my head.
He's not in the top 30 for Benny.
He's not.
So
he's not the top 10.
He goes with a hot
in-
take, and then he hits it with a caveat after.
Best for me is like just pure talent quality. It doesn't matter how long you've been in this league. If you've been in this league, you are in that. If you're greatest, you have to have done it for a long time. You can't be Zlatan as comes here and does it for 2 years and then leaves. He can't be one of the greatest strikers of all time in MLS history. That's what I'm saying.
You should ask everybody that comes on your podcast this question and see what they come up with.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I just think it depends how you define the word greatest or best or whatever you want to call it. But anyways,
I guess dominant over a course of a season or a few seasons, I guess you could say, which Carlos then would be number 1 in my mind.
Yeah, and if you put Wando in a lineup with 10 of those guys, and you had to ask somebody and said, okay, which of these guys has scored the most goals in MLS history? Like, Wando might be your 10th pick.
And take your shirt off too.
But which is what makes his achievement so much better, man. I mean, the fact that he is the best goal scorer this league has ever seen. Right. It's incredible.
Dude, if you haven't listened to that podcast where we had Chris on, dude, you gotta listen to it. We had one.
You had Wando on?
Oh man, it's a good one. It's a good one. That and Mike Grella, you gotta watch.
And we just broke the 2-hour mark on this podcast, by the way. So.
Did we really?
No, I don't think so, but it's close.
Yeah. Have fun editing, Nino.
Honestly, I think Nino's gonna take 2 hours to edit this one. But anyways, all right. We don't have anything else for Stewie. We can let him go to bed.
Yeah.
I mean, we always have something, but yeah, we can let him go to bed.
All right. Thanks so much, Stu Holden, man. Stewie, what a guy. Always fun to talk to him, and a lot of interesting stories that he told us today, and a lot of knowledge about the league. So always fun to talk to him about that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I felt like that conversation could have gone on for another 3 hours if we really wanted it to.
I think it did. I think it did go on for another 3 hours.
So, yeah, it was great. I mean, like we said, Stewie's a guy that we know very well, and it's nice to hear, a success story after playing the game you loved and the game you played your whole life.
Especially for guys like us, huh, Sal? I mean, you retired. I've told you need to unretire, but you retired, and I'm getting closer each and every day. And so we need to hear those stories of inspiration. I think that's what this was for. It was really just for us, not really for the fans today.
Just to not, let us get too down on life.
Yeah. Well, we got the podcast going for us. That's the one thing we got. All right. Well, as always, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, yell or stream on TuneIn, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play. Rate and comment on Instagram and Twitter, and email us your thoughts on BennyStyleThePodcast@gmail.com. We appreciate all you guys out there continuing to send us those questions for Ike's interrogation and the love that you guys give us. So keep that up.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.